Have you ever contemplated why private military firms are flourishing at an unprecedented pace? As we delve into the heart of this phenomenon, we're drawn into a global shift. A shift towards private military firms which are sprouting up and growing at a pace that's nothing short of remarkable. Imagine a world where these firms are not an exception, but the norm. A world where they extend their reach across a staggering 150 nations. It's not a distant future we're talking about, it's a reality that's steadily unfurling right before our eyes. Now you might wonder, how can we measure this growth? Well, the answer lies in the numbers. By the time we hit the year 2030, these private military firms are projected to rake in revenues that would make even the most successful multinational corporations blush. We're talking about a whopping $400 billion, that's billion with a B. But what's fueling this skyrocketing demand? Why are nations increasingly turning to these firms? Is it a reflection of a changing global landscape? Or is it indicative of deeper, more systemic issues at play? In the face of acute shortages of soldiers in various countries, we're witnessing a fading interest among the youth in pursuing traditional military careers. Nations like Russia and Ukraine are grappling with the challenge of recruiting enough soldiers, leading to a reliance on reserves and contract soldiers. Meanwhile, in the United States, all branches of the military missed their recruiting targets in the year 2023, marking a significant decline in active-duty personnel since 1987. As we peel back the layers of this intriguing trend, we discover a multitude of factors fueling this surge. But that's a story for another scene. For now, let's just say that the rise of private military firms is a tale that's as fascinating as it is complex. The allure of military careers is fading, and it's happening worldwide. The days when young men and women would line up to serve their nations, driven by a sense of duty, patriotism, or the promise of a stable career, are disappearing in the rearview mirror. Why is this happening? Several factors are at play. The promise of competitive pay, once a significant draw, is no longer a guarantee. Young people today are witnessing their peers in other industries earn more while enjoying better work-life balance. Substandard living conditions and healthcare in the military also deter many. The harsh realities of military life, extended periods away from family, the physical and mental demands of service, are no longer as appealing to the tech-savvy, globally connected youth of today. Past military failures also cast long shadows. Young people are more aware and critical of their nation's military history than ever before. They question the ethics and outcomes of past conflicts, eroding the once idealized image of military service. But there's another, darker side to this story. As the appeal of military careers diminishes, there are those who are misled into service. Instances of Indians and Nepalese being tricked into working for foreign armed forces highlight the vulnerability of those in search of decent employment. These individuals, often from disadvantaged backgrounds, are lured with false promises and end up in dangerous, exploitative situations. In the United States, the situation isn't much better. All branches of the military missed their recruiting targets in 2023, marking a significant decline in active-duty personnel since 1987. And what happens when a nation can't recruit enough of its own citizens to serve in its military? They look elsewhere. They turn to reserves, contract soldiers, and increasingly private military companies. As nations struggle to recruit their own nationals for military service, the reliance on mercenaries and private military firms increases. The decline in military recruitment is no sudden phenomenon. It stems from a series of deep-rooted issues. Military service, once seen as a noble and rewarding career path, is now being met with hesitation and skepticism. One of the primary factors contributing to this shift is the lack of competitive pay. In comparison to other career paths, the military often falls short in providing adequate financial compensation. This lack of competitive pay can create significant financial strain on service members and their families, making it a less appealing career choice. In addition to financial concerns, substandard living conditions often associated with military life can deter potential recruits. Service members are frequently required to live in close quarters, often in remote areas with limited access to amenities. For some, the allure of serving their country is not enough to outweigh the reality of these difficult living conditions. Healthcare, too, is a significant issue. Despite the promise of comprehensive medical coverage, many service members and veterans face challenges in accessing quality healthcare. This can result in long-term health issues and financial burdens that further dissuade individuals from pursuing a military career. Public perception of military life and past military failures also play a role in declining recruitment. High-profile conflicts and military scandals can tarnish the image of military service. The media often focuses on the hardships and dangers associated with military life rather than the potential benefits, creating a negative perception that can be difficult to overcome. Lastly, criticisms of diversity and inclusion efforts in the military have become a deterrent for many. Despite efforts to foster a more inclusive environment, conservative criticisms have created a perception that the military is not a welcoming place for all. This can discourage potential recruits from diverse backgrounds from considering a military career. These factors have created a gap that private military firms are now filling. As traditional military recruitment continues to decline, these firms are capitalizing on the opportunity, offering competitive pay, better living conditions, and perceived increased autonomy. This shift, however, is not without its own set of issues, which we will explore in the next scene. The use of mercenaries and private military companies in conflicts is not a new concept, but it's certainly gaining momentum. Let's take a moment to consider this. As nations grapple with the challenge of recruiting their own citizens for military service, they are increasingly turning to mercenaries and private military companies or PMCs to fill the gap. This isn't some dystopian future we're talking about, it's a reality that's unfolding right now. In places like Russia and Ukraine, where they're struggling to recruit enough soldiers, they're resorting to the use of reserves and contract soldiers. Even the United States, a country with a long-standing military tradition, has seen a significant dip in active-duty personnel since the late 80s. It's clear that the world is facing a military recruitment crisis, and mercenaries and PMCs are stepping in to fill the void. So, what does this mean for the future of global security and warfare? Well, for one, it could lead to a shift in the dynamics of conflict. With the rise of PMCs, warfare could become more commercialized, with nations outsourcing their military needs to the highest bidder. This could potentially destabilize the traditional balance of power and introduce new risks and uncertainties. Moreover, the increasing use of mercenaries and PMCs could blur the lines of accountability. After all, these private entities are not bound by the same rules and regulations as national militaries. This raises serious questions about oversight, legality, and human rights. However, it's not all doom and gloom. PMCs also offer certain advantages. For instance, they can provide specialized skills and capabilities that national militaries may lack. They can also serve as a flexible and cost-effective solution for nations struggling with recruitment or budget constraints. But regardless of where you stand on the issue, one thing is clear. The rise of private military firms is reshaping the landscape of international conflicts. Just as the military-industrial complex dominated the 20th century, the 21st may very well be defined by the rise of the military services complex. The rise of private military firms is reshaping the landscape of international conflicts. As we reflect on the flourishing of private military firms, we need to consider the broader implications. We've walked through the rising prominence of these firms, the dwindling allure of traditional military careers, the underlying issues plaguing military recruitment, and the increasing use of mercenaries and PMCs. The trend is clear. Private military firms are not just on the rise, they are thriving at an unexpected pace. The reasons behind this surge are multifaceted. From the lack of competitive pay, substandard living conditions, and healthcare in conventional military careers, to the differing perceptions of military life and past military failures. These factors have all played a role. The shift towards private military firms and mercenaries is not without its consequences. There's a real concern that this transition could change the face of global security and warfare. It's a shift that could potentially blur the lines between national and corporate interests, between patriotism and profit. What happens when military power is not just in the hands of nations, but also within the grasp of private companies? This shift could lead to conflicts driven less by national security interest and more by corporate profits. It's a sobering thought and a scenario that could drastically alter the dynamics of international relations and conflict resolution. These private military firms, projected to operate in over 150 nations and generate $400 billion in revenues by 2030, represent a significant change in the landscape of global security. And with this change comes a responsibility for us all, to understand and navigate the complexities that such a shift presents. So, as we witness the rise of private military firms, we must question, what does this mean for the future of global security? Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to support our channel. Also, a special shout out to our new member, Suriking 1350. Your support helps us continue this important conversation.